darkness can hold a host of hidden horrors. You think you know what lurks within the murky corners of the unknown, but you never truly do until you're caught, wide-eyed and breathless, in the eye of a storm. I was in a quaint little town in Austria, breathing in the fresh alpine air. A picturesque hamlet, straight out of a postcard, with timbered houses adorned with colorful window boxes. I'd booked an Airbnb, a charming old-world chalet managed by a woman named Gertrude. When I arrived, Gertrude was standing by the front door, awaiting my arrival. She was an older woman, lines of age etched on her face, and her icy blue eyes held a strange glimmer. Her English was stilted, but her hospitality was warm, her charm welcoming. We exchanged pleasantries, and she showed me around the cozy cottage. I was taken by the rustic charm of the place. Little did I know I was being pulled into a labyrinth that would slowly turn into my nightmare. As the first few days passed, things were perfectly normal. I explored the town, the beautiful surrounding landscapes, and enjoyed the tranquil solitude of the chalet. Gertrude visited daily, supposedly to check if I needed anything, her icy eyes twinkling curiously. I thought it was a part of her hospitality, a touch of Austrian homeliness. But hindsight is 20/20. Around the 5th day, I began noticing odd occurrences. I'd find my belongings misplaced. The bedroom window, which I distinctly remember closing, wide open. I brushed it off as forgetfulness, until one evening, I found a plate of freshly baked strudels on the kitchen counter. I hadn't baked any strudels. My heart pounded like a war drum. I searched the chalet, a dreadful paranoia brewing inside me. Finding no one, I called Gertrude, who merely chuckled, claiming it was her who'd baked the strudels and left them for me to enjoy. I wasn't convinced, but chose to let it go. I ate the strudels, which were delicious, hoping this bizarre episode would end there. It didn't. Over the following days, things escalated. I would hear soft footsteps outside my bedroom in the dead of the night, whispers fluttering in from the darkness. I found notes left for me in shaky handwriting, expressing admiration, claiming we were soulmates. An undercurrent of fear started coursing through my veins, pricking me every time I thought of these events. I tried to confront Gertrude, but she laughed it off as her lonely heart playing games. I didn't believe her. The chilling smile she wore made my skin crawl, her icy blue eyes twinkling with an eerie glow. I knew I had to leave, but I was in the heart of an Austrian hamlet, the next town miles away. Trapped. I decided to make a run for it the next morning. I packed my bags, ready to hitch a ride to the closest city. But fate, it seems, had different plans. That night, I woke up to a chilling draft brushing against my neck. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, creaking ominously. My heart pounded in my chest as I saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of my bed. Gertrude. Her icy blue eyes shimmered in the dim moonlight that seeped through the window. A sinister smile played on her lips. She was holding something in her hand, a small wooden figurine, a grotesque representation of me. "I made this for you, my love," she croaked, her voice grating against the silence. I stared at her, terrified. I wanted to scream, run, do anything but sit there, frozen in horror. "Gertrude," I stuttered, "I need to leave. I've got an emergency back home." Her smile vanished, replaced by a look of fury. "You can't leave. We are meant to be," she hissed. I was stuck in a horror movie with no way out. But I had to escape. I had to survive. Summoning every ounce of courage, I pushed past her, bolted towards the door, and ran. I could hear her yelling behind me, her cries of desperation echoing into the night. I managed to hitch a ride to the nearest city, where I reported the incident to the police. They promised to investigate, but the look of incredulity on their faces was hard to miss. I didn't care. I was alive, and that was all that mattered. Back home, I found myself jumping at the slightest of noises, the faintest of whispers. I couldn't shake off the fear, the memory of Gertrude's icy blue eyes. Months later, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note and a small wooden figurine, an uncanny resemblance of me. The note said, "Remember, we are soulmates. Waiting for you, G." I haven't heard from Gertrude since, But every time I close my eyes, I see her. I see those icy blue eyes, that chilling smile. She's out there somewhere, waiting, watching. The unknown isn't the real terror. It's knowing that somewhere in that darkness, something is looking back. And sometimes that something knows your name. When the world is your canvas, you paint with bold strokes. That was my mantra when I booked the picturesque chalet in the heart of Bavaria via Airbnb. Little did I know then, my choice would hurl me into a chilling encounter that would make my blood run cold. I still remember the photograph, enchanting in its simplicity. A quaint little cottage nestled amongst sprawling acres of pristine meadows, with alpine peaks hugging the horizon. The perfect place for a novelist seeking inspiration. I had exchanged a few messages with our host, Rolf. He was brief and to the point, communicating the essentials about the chalet and local amenities. I arrived on a chilly evening as twilight fell and the air was fragrant with the smell of the pines. The cottage was as charming as the pictures, its warm lights glowing welcomingly in the growing darkness. Inside was equally enchanting. Old-world charm met modern convenience, with carefully chosen comforting furniture and a well-equipped kitchen. A crackling fireplace completed the atmosphere of inviting coziness. Rolf's absence was a bit odd, but he had informed me that he wouldn't be there to welcome me. He lived in the neighboring farmhouse, he'd said. His presence was felt, though, in the carefully prepared space and the handwritten note on the table. Feel at home. Days turned into weeks, the isolation and serenity feeding my creativity. Rolf was an unseen, benign presence, responding promptly to any requests or inquiries via text. I began to relish the solitude, my days filled with writing and my nights with the eerie silence of the surrounding woods. One evening, a knock broke the tranquility. I opened the door to a disheveled man, who introduced himself as Rolf. I was startled. The man before me was a stark contrast to the meticulous, prompt host I had envisioned. He apologized for the intrusion, a wild look in his eyes, as he mentioned something about misplaced keys. The days following Rolf's visit were marked with an undercurrent of unease. Random knocks in the middle of the night, strange noises from the farmhouse, and Rolf's once precise messages now arrived as erratic, nonsensical rambles. His once unseen presence now loomed over the chalet, oppressive and omnipresent. Then came the truly terrifying night, when I was awakened by a low, murmuring voice. I froze, recognizing it as Rolf's, its cadence clear despite the muffled words. It was coming from underneath the floorboards. I crept down, the wooden floorboards chilling against my bare feet. The voice grew louder, an agitated monologue punctuated by manic laughter. I pressed my ear to the floor, heart pounding. Rolf was talking to himself, a stream of chilling threats and paranoid accusations that made my blood run cold. For a horrifying moment, our world turned upside down. The comforting isolation was a prison, the unseen host was a threat. I escaped the chalet that night, seeking refuge in a nearby inn. As I informed the local authorities, I was met with hushed whispers and anxious glances. Rolf was a known figure, they told me, diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but refusing treatment. The authorities searched the chalet and the farmhouse. They discovered a network of tunnels, allowing Rolf access to the homes without detection. They said I was lucky to get out when I did. In the harsh light of day, the picture-perfect chalet seemed a sinister facade. The news of Rolf's arrest made headlines worldwide, casting a shadow on the charming Bavarian village. My Bavarian retreat had turned into a chilling chapter of my life. Even today, I can't shake off the image of Rolf's disheveled appearance, the manic light in his eyes, and the chilling echo of his voice under the floorboards. The quaint little cottage, the crackling fireplace, the warm lights, they all seemed to harbor an unseen horror, an echo of the unseen host and his unseen illness. My trip to find inspiration had indeed turned into a chilling tale, one that will forever be imprinted on the canvas of my mind. Dusk was settling in, casting long shadows across the sprawling estate as our car crunched up the gravel drive. The listing had said antique manor, live like royalty, and I'll admit, the regal charm of the place had hooked us instantly. The centuries-old mansion towered above, darkened windows peering down, its air of decadence slightly marred by disrepair. Our host, an elderly man named Oswald, had given us a rushed tour, his sunken eyes darting around nervously. He disappeared as abruptly as he'd arrived, with a warning to respect the house. My friends and I, 6 in all, took it in stride. Our curiosity dwarfing any misgivings, we began to explore the mansion's shadowed corners, reveling in the hidden treasures, faded portraits, antique furniture, and a maze-like network of rooms, each holding secrets of the past. The first 2 days passed without incident, yet an undercurrent of unease began to form. Unexplained cold drafts, fleeting shadows in the corner of the eye, whispers of sound where there should have been silence. We chalked it up to the house's age and our overactive imaginations. On the 3rd day, we discovered the library. Endless shelves stretched towards the vaulted ceiling, packed with books of all sizes, their spines worn and yellowed with age. There, nestled between dusty tomes, I found a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle. It was Oswald's diary, filled with entries dating back years, each documenting an unsettling obsession with the mansion and its past. The chilling revelation was swiftly forgotten in the face of a more immediate problem. We woke the next day to find the front doors wouldn't budge. The opulent French windows, our gateway to the expansive gardens, were similarly unyielding. The mansion had turned into a grand cage. Panicking, we tried calling Oswald, the police, anyone, but all our phones had mysteriously died, despite having been charged the night before. Days turned into a blur as we lived in a state of heightened fear, the mansion's cold walls closing in on us. The whispers grew louder, shadows took on menacing shapes, and the temperature dropped drastically. It felt like the house was alive, its ancient spirit awakened and angry. The thought of Oswald's diary resurfaced. Was this his doing, or had he been driven to obsession by the mansion's malignant aura? We found Patrick, the most skeptical among us, collapsed in the library on the 5th day. His face was ashen, eyes wide with an unnameable horror. He'd found a series of maps tucked into the diary, blueprints of the mansion. One room stood out, a hidden chamber in the mansion's bowels. Guided by the blueprints, we found the room. It was as if we'd stepped into a different time, a place untouched by sunlight, laden with an unholy stillness. The room was filled with strange artifacts, each more unsettling than the last, their purpose unknown, their origin undeniably ancient. Our discoveries paled in comparison to the note we found, scrawled in Oswald's manic handwriting. "You're playing the game now," it read. "This is your trial by fire. Survive, and you'll be free." Oswald never came back. A week later, we were discovered by the police, huddled together for warmth and safety, our sanity hanging by a thread. The mansion's secrets remained ours alone, a horrific shared experience. The shadowy room? It was empty when the police investigated. Its artifacts vanished as if they'd never existed. And Oswald? All traces of him disappeared, leaving behind an enigma wrapped in a riddle. Did he set us up as pawns in a demented game? Or was he another victim of the mansion's sinister energy, driven to madness by its timeless enigma? To this day, the mansion stands, its foreboding silhouette a constant reminder of our ordeal. Despite the horror, a part of me yearns to return, to solve its mysteries, to understand Oswald's obsession. But some doors, once opened, are better left shut. After all, who knows what lurks behind them, waiting in the darkness to be discovered? A tale of terror and intrigue, straight from the darkest corners of the unknown. If this bone-chilling account left you on the edge of your seat, thirsty for more such tales, go ahead and hit that like button. It's the simplest way you can support the channel and help us continue to unearth more spine-tingling stories. If you haven't already, click on subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell icon. This will ensure you're notified each time we delve into another eerie tale from the world of the unexplained and the supernatural. See that video on your screen right now? It's another unsettling journey into the heart of darkness, tailor-made for lovers of horror and mystery. Click on it and join us on another thrilling adventure. And hey, we know you've got your own spine-tingling stories to tell. Did you ever encounter something unexplainable? A haunting vacation like ours, perhaps? Or maybe you've crossed paths with the inexplicable right in your own backyard. Feel free to share these with us in the comments section. We can't wait to dive into your personal tales of terror. Until our paths cross again in the shadowy realms of horror, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, when it comes to the paranormal, it's always darkest before the dawn. Goodbye for now.